October. What I like the most about this month is that every year it gives me an excuse to talk about the Dead Rising franchise on this channel. Well, I completely ignore the fact that I only have 2 videos about the series, and one of them was uploaded in April 2 years ago. But really, what can I say? Dead Rising is one of my favorite Capcom franchises. One time, I even borrowed an Xbox One from a friend and I bought a copy of Dead Rising 3 because it was the only game from that console I really wanted to play. Every year, I find myself replaying at least one of the games I like. It's just so fun, killing zombies in creative ways, while also having this constant pressure of a time limit while I try my best to get a perfect run. But something I've always loved above all else in the games are the Psychopaths, the bosses you find through the outbreaks. I never skip an opportunity to fight them because they're just so fun. What I like so much about them is how they leave such an impression on you that you even end up remembering their names despite their short screen time. It's fascinating to see how they turn out that way and what makes them so unique from one another. So let's get straight to it. Sit back, relax, and pray that some head honcho from Capcom will look at this video and realize people still care about Dead Rising and maybe greenlights a new game that won't fucking suck. Please, the series deserves so much better. Here we have the top 10 best Psychopaths in the Dead Rising series.
Reel it in before I keelhaul ya! Oh no.
We kick off this list with 3 different people. The convicts from Dead Rising 1. These assholes are interesting because individually they're nothing special, and it's funny because none of them even get a death cutscene, but together they become a Dead Rising player's worst nightmare. The convicts are 3 guys who escaped from prison during the outbreak and stole a military jeep to cause havoc all around Leisure Park, attacking Frank and every survivor they come across. The reason as to why they are on this list is because of what they represent. Something that sets them apart from other psychopaths is that, for reasons nobody understands, they can respawn even after they die, constantly fucking up with the player. But the cherry on top is that every time you arrive to Leisure Park the song Gun Guru starts playing, and it's a great song on its own. But in the context of Dead Rising, it represents fear and anxiety. Every time you hear those first musical notes, you start to sweat because the convicts can show up at any time, ready to strike you, ready to mock you, potentially ruining your day and forcing you to restart from your last save point. They're annoying, they stress you, you hate them, but you love to hate them. Which is a bit disappointing that in the Wii version, Chop Till You Drop, they were reduced to a bunch of quick time events. I mean, the song is still there, sure, but it downplays everything that made the convicts so iconic to begin with. But still, the well guys earned the 10th spot. What I find so cool about the Psychopaths is what they can make me feel. Maybe they can disturb me, I can hate them, I can feel pity for them, but this one is unique because it outright disgusts me. Darlene from Dead Rising 3. A morbidly obese woman with an obsession with food. So huge that she doesn't hesitate to murder an innocent man who wanted to eat. But don't let her appearance fool you. Despite her massive size, Darlene is one of the fastest psychopaths in the series. Her scooter lets her move at incredibly high speeds, quickly closing the gap with Nick so she can stab him with a massive spork. Even at distance, she can still throw plates and knives, and just like a certain other psychopath, she can restore her own health by eating from the buffet, although the player can turn this tactic against her by force-feeding her, causing damage, which at times can be interrupted because she loves to puke all over the place, causing players to sleep. But once her health runs out, Darlene meets her end by sleeping in her own vomit, causing her to constantly throw up while she's down, until she dies by choking on her own vomit. As impressive as all of that sounds, Darlene isn't exactly difficult. I mean, almost nobody in this game is challenging, honestly. But her fight is memorable, fun, and her entire event grossed me out so much, to the point I had a bad taste in my mouth after her defeat. So, success I guess? Darlene gets the 9th spot, and as a final comment, if somebody held a gun to my head and told me to spell Darlene's last name from memory, then tell my friends I love them. You know, I don't know a single Dead Rising fan who hates Frank West, and let's be fair, how can you? He's so cool and charismatic, he deserves all the praise he gets, except his incarnation in 4, that's a completely different piece of shit carrying the same name. But yeah, Frank is great. But you know who doesn't get as much love? Chuck Greene, and I've always wondered why he's not as beloved as Frank. He's determined, also cool, has a funny sense of humor, and he's a dad that will do whatever is necessary to ensure his daughter's happiness, even if that means giving her a fucking tiger as a gift. How is that not admirable? So yeah, ever since I first played Dead Rising 2, I've been a big fan of Chuck. So I guess you can imagine how my heart shattered when I saw him become a psychopath in Off the Record. In this alternate reality, Chuck has become an unhinged drunk due to losing Katie to the zombies, and now wanders all around Fortune City trying to protect the daughter he lost. He's initially friendly towards Frank, but a small misunderstanding causes them to fight. Chuck's battle is honestly not that big of a deal, it's almost the same thing as Leon Bell with his Slicycle, with only Molotovs being a new tactic. But even then, this fight still remains pretty easy, especially if you know how to get him stuck in the environment, which sometimes can happen by pure accident. While this battle is nothing spectacular, I decided to put him on this list because I think it's so cool when they make a previous protagonist a boss battle, except that this time they put Chuck at his absolute worst. It's shocking, it's tragic, but it's also very memorable. Chuck Greene lands on the 8th spot. Cliff Hudson. He's a special case for me. As I mentioned in the past, my first exposure to the Dead Rising series was Chop Till You Drop. In this game, some psychopaths were unfortunately removed and instead were replaced with special zombies. Cliff was one of those unfortunate victims alongside Joe Slade and Kent Swanson. So for a long time, I didn't know much about Cliff other than he wielded a machete. But once I finally got to play the original Dead Rising, I was very surprised by him. Cliff Hudson is a very tragic psychopath. He's a war veteran who suffered from flashbacks after hearing the screams of his granddaughter being eaten alive by zombies. Because of his PTSD, he started to execute zombies in gruesome manners, take survivors as war prisoners, and mistakes Frank for an enemy soldier, prompting them to battle. The thing about Cliff I remember the most is that his battle is pretty damn hard, like, everyone knows that the small chainsaw in Dead Rising 1 is broken. It literally breaks the game in half. Everyone touched by it dies in a few hits, especially the psychopaths. But even if you come prepared, Cliff still presents a good challenge. I love how he uses the area to his advantage by teleporting through the air ducts and tunnels to strike Frank when he least expects it. It creates a very tense atmosphere where you're constantly wary of what will come next. Maybe he will throw a flare, a pipe bomb, or come out from hiding to stab you in the back. Even when you think you have him, he's still very nimble and can be quite hard to hit at times. For a 58-year-old man, that's pretty impressive. And finally, I love the ending cutscene. It's so serious and tragic. It doesn't feel the need to break the immersion by cracking a joke or showing a comical death. No, instead it finishes with Frank closing the deceased Cliff's eyes as a sign of empathy. And that for me makes all these psychopaths all more memorable. Cliff Hudson gets the 7th spot on this top 10. Oh hey, we have another military man, Sergeant Dwight Boykin, and I think there's not much science behind this one. Boykin is an unfortunate victim of being at the wrong place at the wrong time. I remember that when I first played the game I thought he was an evil guy, but no. He's just a soldier who wanted to fulfill his mission and rescue the survivors, but went insane after seeing his entire squad get massacred in front of him by the new gas zombies, and now he mistakes Chuck and Frank for one of the infected. Dwight shares a few similarities with Clint. Both are soldiers who suffer from PTSD, but there's a major difference between these two. Cliff's battle is hard, but Dwight's battle goes hard like, oh, I love this battle! Cliff focuses more on getting the jump on the player, while Boykin takes a more direct approach. The challenge in this battle comes from him constantly keeping distance from the player with his assault rifle, while still forcing them to come out of cover with grenades, leaving them vulnerable. And I just love the atmosphere of this battle. It's so climactic, especially with that fucking amazing song that I unfortunately can't put on this video because of copyright issues. And I might be saying that a lot for the remaining of this top 10. This battle for me is so fun that if Dwight had been the final boss of the 72-hour mode, I would have been totally fine with that. So that's why I decided to give him the 6th spot. As I said earlier, Dead Rising 3, for as fun as it is a really easy game, like piss easy. But there's one exception I can think of. Jerry Gallo. God, I love this battle! Jerry is a female bodybuilder whose hopes of winning the Miss Gigantic California contest were shattered when the event was cancelled due to the zombie outbreak. She's often mistaken for a man due to her muscular body, which understandably makes her prone to anger attacks. As you can imagine, Nick commits the mistake of calling her a sir, which causes her to get super violent and sharing a fight. And okay, here's the thing. Jerry is a psychopath who mostly relies on close combat. Technically speaking, she's very easy to deal with as long as you have long-range weapons. But when I first played Dead Rising 3, for some reason, I entered this fight with only close-range weapons. But to my surprise, that made the fight way more difficult and fun. Yeah, it might not be good design if you have to purposely handicap yourself to find some challenge, but still, I can't deny how much fun I had with this battle. Jerry made it on this video because her interactions are very funny, the battle is epic, really damn good, the music pumps me up every time I listen to it, and the ending always cracks me up without fail. She may have died before getting her Miss Gigantic California trophy, but at least she gets the 5th spot on this list. I can't say for certain, but the psychopath that takes the 4th spot on this list might as well be the most obscure one in the franchise. DWIGHT. Who's this, you may ask? Jeth is the main antagonist and only boss fight from Dead Rising 2 Case Zero, a downloadable game that linked the events between Dead Rising 1 and 2, which was exclusive for the Xbox 360 Live Arcade. It wasn't very long, you could only get to level 5, although you could carry over your stats and combo cards to the base game. Looking back at it now, it didn't have much replay value and you really don't miss anything by not playing this game. Except for one thing. The Jeth boss fight. Jeth is a mechanic with no morals who wants to kill Chuck's daughter Katie since she is infected, but also wants to add her corpse to his collection. Naturally, Chuck will have none of that and both men battle it out in a junkyard. Here's the thing. Jeth is very challenging, not just because he hits really hard or has decent long-range attacks, but because you have to deal with that while you're just level 5. Low health, low speed, almost no skills, and I honestly think this makes Jeth a very unique fight. You really have to know the terrain, use every small window to attack, and be extra careful since Jeth can easily drain your health if you lower your guard. And yet, this battle is so fun! I like the context of it and the music is just a delight to listen to! And again, I can't show it here because of copyright issues, but it's really good, trust me. Jeth offered a great and unique challenge, and this entire event also made me appreciate Chuck on the same level I appreciate Frank, so the 4th place is very well earned. When you think about it, all the Dead Rising games have psychopaths that are super sexual. Joe Slade from 1 kidnaps and sexually harasses young women. Dylan Fuentes from 3 is a sex addict, but here, I want to give the spot to the sexual psychopath from Dead Rising 2, Randy TUGMAN. Randy is an obese man with a crippling porn addiction who kidnapped a young woman during the outbreak so he can marry her and finally have sex. I love this encounter for 2 reasons. Randy is obviously a parody of internet people you have most likely met at some point. His porn addiction, his idolization for sex, and the means he takes to achieve that make him a very despicable person, which makes his ultimate downfall all more satisfying. And second, his fight is really damn good! It has a great setting, a good arena, a fantastic battle theme, which again I can't fully play because, you know. And hey, credit where it's due, just like Darlene, Randy is surprisingly fast despite his massive body and the fact he's carrying a giant chainsaw. He's one of the few psychopaths who lacks a long-range option, but I don't think that matters because he can easily hurt you if you don't use the arena in your favor. He's just that fast! And there's an extra thing. I've talked about this in the past, but for those who aren't aware, I have a small trauma for chainsaws in video games, all thanks to Resident Evil 4. So as you can see, giant fast man carrying a giant chainsaw penis weapon. I do get quite anxious when fighting Randy, but that doesn't mean I can't enjoy this fantastic battle. Here lies Randy TUGMAN. Here and fast, died a virgin, but at least he earned the 3rd spot on this list.
You may now kiss the bride.
My stuff!
Steven Chapman is a psychopath that I love everything of. His arena, his dialogue, the music, oh, the music! And just how creative this battle is, but one step at a time. Honestly, if this video was just about psychopath cutscenes, Steven will still be a top contender. His interactions are excellent, from the way he moves, he talks, everything just hits the right spots. And I believe this is all owed to the voice actor. His performance is so good that every time he screams I get chills.
I don't allow vandalism in my store!
Steven's battle is like fighting a bull who can wield a shotgun. His main method of attack is charging at Frank with a shopping cart filled with sharp objects. Since you're in market aisles, your best bet to dodge is to jump over the shelves to avoid getting hit and strike from above. But that's when Steven can pull out his shotgun and hit you from a distance to ruin your strategy. And that's pretty much it. Steven's moveset isn't exactly complex, but the arena is what brings the challenge and makes the battle so fun. You need to use the terrain in your favor and take every small chance you have to attack Steven. I also love how creative his weapon of choice is. It's such a simple concept, but again, it works so well in context. I wouldn't be surprised if the weapon card was the inspiration for the combo weapons in future games. Steven Chapman, for as simple as he looks, he's for me one of the most memorable psychopaths in the entire series, which is why he gets the second place. His battle is great, his cutscenes are incredible, the music is so hyper, and he just wanted a nice store.
Have a nice day. Clean up! Register 6!
Honestly, the hardest part about making this video is that I love the Psychopaths of Dead Rising so much that it was hard for me to just choose 10. So before we get to the super obvious first spot of the list, let's give a quick look at some honorable mentions. Joe Slade, Larry Shank, Chef Antoine, and Brandon Whittaker. Simply put, their battles are really fun, they all have some messed up interactions, but their battle music is the highlight of their encounters. You have to search for these songs and listen to them to get what I mean. The twins Amber and Crystal Bailey. This battle is fast-paced and exciting, and I'm very positive the intro cutscene awoke many things inside of me when I was just entering my teenage years. Diego Martinez. I thought it was pretty sad having to fight an ally, but god, this battle is so over the top. I mean, you fight Diego in a space exhibition, and this dude attacks you by throwing literal planets at you and suplexing you with a spacesuit. That's so stupid, I love it. Ted Smith and Snowflake. The former because he's so tragic, you really feel bad about killing him. And the latter because, need I remind you she's a fucking tiger? But I like the twist that instead of killing her, you can tame her and give it to Chuck's 7-year-old daughter as a gift. What a great dad he is. And finally, Dylan Fuentes. Everything about this guy is so messed up. His design, his sex addiction, his weapon of choice being a massive, freezing cock flamethrower. His battle music is literally just a maniacal laugh. And finally, in the Latin American dub of Dead Rising 3, he's voiced by the same guy who voices Goku, and I don't know how to feel about that.
Estás excitándome mucho, chiquilín.
Anyway, it's time to move on to the first place, and please pretend you're surprised here. No, really. Were you expecting anyone else? I know this was the most predictable pick, but come on! Adam the Clown is without a doubt the best psychopath in the series. He has a fantastic intro, a phenomenal battle, one of the most gruesome deaths, and he is literally an icon. Honestly, if it wasn't for Frank's popularity or the Serboth masks, I'm convinced Adam will be the face of the series. He has earned the popularity he has. It's funny because when you first look at him, Adam is one of the most basic horror cliches. He is a killer clown, that's it. But it works so well, and those small chainsaws he jolts around are a nice touch. But it also helps that his battle is also one of the best and one of the most challenging ones. This is due to many reasons. First, do you remember what I said about the small chainsaws breaking Dead Rising in half? Well, Adam is the owner of said chainsaws. It's impossible to get them if you don't defeat Adam first, which forces you to be well prepared. And even then, Adam is so challenging because his arena is big and he has something for every situation. His chainsaws cause a lot of damage at close range, which, by the way, he can even use them to block firearms. He can spit fire as a counterattack, throw knives at middle range, and blow explosive balloons at long range. It's impressive how, despite not being mandatory to finish the game, Adam the Clown left such an impression on every single player that he became an icon. His battle theme, while nobody can decipher the lyrics, became Frank's main theme in the Marvel vs. Capcom series. He became a costume in Dead Rising 4. His mini chainsaws made a cut in Dead Rising 3. And even Off the Record made a tribute by introducing a new boss fight against his younger brother Evan. I know there is no surprise factor here, but nobody can deny how much influence Adam the Clown left in Dead Rising, which is why he deserves the first spot on this list. Well, is there a pick to disagree with or a psychopath you would love to mention? If so, then let me know in the comments. And as usual, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. And if you could support the channel in any way, like subscribing, sharing, commenting, liking, or Patreon, that will be most appreciated. Have a wonderful day and take care. I'll see you next time.